Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Art and Business of Broadway. I'm Ken Navas, president of Dallas Summer Musicals, and I'd like to start the evening in just the right way. Thank you to Bottoms Up Cocktails for providing our beverages tonight. I hope you all have them handy and can raise a toast to start the evening with me. Cheers. What a treat we have for you tonight. Our very first panel discussion for the Art and Business of Broadway. It's called Theater at the Sea Level, moderated by the wonderful Catherine Wagner, CEO of the Business Council for the Arts. For those of you that don't know, the Business Council for the Arts provides leadership training for business professionals eager to engage with the arts. It's a not-for-profit organization like DSM. It also consults with businesses to utilize the arts in employee engagement and client development. Happy to share that DSM's board chair, Jane Shane, is a graduate of this program, and it would be wonderful if Jane would share a few words with us tonight.
Hi, Ken. Thank you. Yes, I am a proud graduate of the Business Council for the Arts program. That program is called the Leadership Arts Institute, and I'm in good company because our panel today consists of two other graduates, a DSM board member, Noel O'Connell, and Skylar Stuckey. I was in the program about 10 years ago when I was still with Texas Instruments, and I loved it because it gave me an exposure to some local performing arts and visual arts organizations, and I learned how a board of directors supports the staff of an organization. It's been really useful to draw upon what I learned in that program in leading the DSM board of directors today. So I'm really looking forward to this evening's program and hearing more about it. And I want to thank everyone for attending it, spending the evening with us. And so, Ken, I'll turn the microphone back over to you.
All right. Thanks, Jane. What a great story to hear and the connection. It's really wonderful. This will be very meaningful for you, I'm sure, tonight. And now, I would like to introduce you to Catherine, who herself holds an MFA in Fine Arts from Indiana University. Catherine, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Ken. It is such an honor to be here today and to host this panel. We have three wonderful panelists tonight. And as you can see, it's Noel O'Connell, Shay Dial-Johnson, and Skylar Stuckey. Noel is the Director of Corporate Programs and Strategy at American Airlines. And then Shay Dial-Johnson. Shay is the Vice President of Community Engagement for Goodwill Industries. And Skylar Stuckey. Skylar is a partner at Gray Reed Law Firm. Now, everyone want to just say hello to our audience? So I wanted to start with something that is sort of top of mind when we're thinking about arts, and especially when we're thinking about arts funding. So present company accepted. We do know that there are people out there that think art is fluff and that artists have their heads in the clouds. Some people even think artists are airheads. So I wanted to dispel that notion immediately by delving into what it is that each of you do as a profession day in and day out. So let's start with Skylar. So Skylar, you're a partner at the wonderful firm of Gray Reed. Tell us what you do and what sort of cases you handle. So we know you're a litigator. That is interesting. But tell us more about what you do.
Sure. So I am a partner at Gray Reed. We are a full-service law firm that handles every kind of case. However, I specialize in a few areas. Commercial business litigation is the main area of focus, and those are courtroom cases, usually involving business disputes. I also do some appellate work where you are arguing the appeal of a case that has already been tried. And finally, I do a little bit of work in the white-collar section, which deals with government compliance, financial, and healthcare matters.
Okay, so that requires some complex thinking, some synthesizing, and other skills that come from theater, which we'll talk about in a minute. So, Shay, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do at Goodwill?
Sure. So as the Vice President of Community Engagement, I oversee an array of things at Goodwill. So we lead a small team. We do all of the marketing, public relations, community outreach, website development, and social media. as well as special events, fundraising, and special projects. So we're all encompassing, and so I direct our wonderful team to do all of that.
So it sounds like you have got a more than full-time job there at with many, many different hats also at Goodwill Industries of Fort Worth, right?
Yes, yes.
And Noel, you've been at American Airlines for 27 years. And so as you head up corporate strategy, what are some of the things that you find yourself doing on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I've had the pleasure of working for American now for, as you say, 27 years, Catherine, which has taken me all over the world. It's an amazing organization. And today, my group, about 30 of us, we deliver pricing and the financials to all of our corporate customers across the world. And so certainly keeps us busy. It's a fascinating industry during a fascinating time. So, yeah.
And Noel, we know that you played Damien in The Omen, a very, very different role than the one you're currently playing. So can you tell us a little bit about that, what that experience was like and when you did that?
Yeah. So as a child, Catherine, and so let me first start saying by maybe a thank you to all of the donors tonight. It's a tough time, even though we're not seeing you guys at the theatre, given the lack of performances. Certainly want to thank you for your support throughout this period of time. And we look forward to seeing you back in the theatre, hopefully next year in 2021. I'd done a lot of acting and modelling as a child, Catherine, and in 1976 was given an opportunity to audition for The Omen, which was Lee Remick and Gregory Peck. And there were 4 children who played Damien throughout the movie. And I got to play him somewhere there in the middle of the movie. So fascinating. I remember some of it. I do remember Gregory Peck and Lee Remick being very kind and warm people. I did that. And from there, I did some stage in London. I took part in a version of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, where Paul Jones, if you remember Paul Jones of Manfred Mann, he was Joseph at the time. And then in 1980, I did 2 years with The Sound of Music with Kurt Von Trapp as Kurt Von Trapp, and Petula Clark was Maria Von Trapp at the time. So, I think my first modeling assignment was when I was 3 years old, and I wrapped it up and gracefully retired when I was 14 years old. So, I went from riches to rags, not the other way around. But yeah, so that was kind of my story.
So I think we've got actually a photo of you as Kurt Von Trapp. We could show that.
There you go.
See, that child looks nothing like Damien.
No, it doesn't look much like me either, but that's okay.
Oh, I see the similarities. Okay, and so, but how did you get your start in theater? Who was it that propelled that? Yeah,
so I was on an agency. I didn't go to a stage school, and so I was actually I just went to a Catholic primary school, and so like a lot of industries, look, there's quite a small circle of agencies and directors and casting agencies, and once you're in that kind of clique, and as a child, I can tell you, being well behaved gets you a lot of jobs, and so that tends to be, and having a mother who isn't bringing drama to the set, you'd be surprised. And so, so you start out with an agency and you go for a bunch of auditions, but when you actually get in with the right director, it can pay dividends. And so, the same agency that did The Sound of Music was actually an agency headed up by a woman called Carol Collins, who's Phil Collins, the singer sister, and they were very much in the industry. And so that was The Sound of Music, and that kind of kicked off some stuff there. An interesting thing was Richard Donner was the director of The Omen, and a couple of years later, I got called to do some promotional marketing for the first Superman. If you remember the first Superman with Christopher Reeve, and because Richard Donner was the director again for the first Superman. And so I went back and done some kind of photography work for a lot of the posters of Superman as a child. So once you're in that neck of the woods, you tend to kind of get called back, hopefully.
That is really fascinating, Noel. And I remember when you were in leadership arts, I knew that you had an acting background, but I didn't know that it was as fulsome as that. And I wonder, do your colleagues at American Airlines know this?
Half of them think I'm still acting, I think.
They
Yeah, they do. No, they do. I'll tell you a story. They do. In fact, Doug Parker, our CEO, was made aware. I'm not sure how he was made aware, but we were at an event one night, and he asked me, so kind of, well, how, not what happened, but like, obviously I'm at American Airlines, and I used to do this acting. And so the example I gave him was that when I first came to the US, I was at a Best Buy, and this was the time that you could buy DVDs. And I was at a Best Buy, I was at the checkout, and there was a big basket of DVDs. And the Omen was sellotaped to Jurassic Park, being sold for $10. And I knew that that's why I work for an airline. So there's no money in it. So not when you're 7. Yeah. So I think I got 12. Actually, in honesty, I think I got £1,200, which was a lot of money, in 1976 for the Omen. There you go.
Right. And for a child, yes.
For a child, yeah.
Yes. That is, I don't know, I can't calculate in pounds how much allowance that is, but that is a lot, big boat.
Yeah, it's all right, yeah.
Yes, it's not bad. So Shay, you have a degree, a BFA from Texas Wesleyan University. And so I am wondering, why did you decide to go into theater for your degree? First of all, what was the impetus behind that?
I just really didn't have a plan, as a lot of young students have now. They already know what they're going to do, and I did not know what I was going to do. I knew that I enjoyed theater, so I was, in the theater drama club and had participated in all the UIL and act plays and competitions and prose and poetry. And I had been doing all of that. And I just assumed, maybe I'll go to college, maybe I won't, maybe I'll just get a job. But I am a first generation college graduate in my family. So, when the opportunity presented itself, I kind of jumped on it. My high school theater teacher just came to me and she's like, you're really good. I can get you an audition. I can't make any promises, but I can make sure that they give you an audition, because I missed all the deadlines. I just was very ill prepared, but I give her a lot of the credit. But I auditioned and got a theater scholarship and ended up getting some academic scholarships to Texas Wesleyan as well. And so that was it. And I thought, I'll get my BFA and I'll go manage a theater somewhere, so I can because I still had this passion for business that I kind of developed over time, and wanting to wear the suit and be the skirt in the boardroom. But I just, theater is what I had done and loved for the last 4 years. So it just kind of worked out.
Right. Well, and I think what you're saying really speaks to the importance of educators. So there was someone who saw the talent in you and took the time to make you aware of it, and the energy to make you aware of it. And it sounds to me like that once that happened, you were on a roll.
Absolutely.
Getting scholarships, and so before, it sounds like, okay, most young people are that way, just I'll let it happen, it'll kind of roll out, it'll all be good. But it sounds like once you had theater in you, you had a passion to really take a hold of it and take a hold of school.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That, absolutely. And just having that extra push, and like you said, someone to go, well, no, you could do this. This doesn't have to stop here. You could keep going. And so that was life-changing for me, honestly, because I'm not sure where I would have landed. So shout out to Cheryl Penland if she's out there watching in Zoom land. But it was a really good move for me. And then, like you said, I just kind of jumped on the ball. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to audition and let me fill out this paperwork and let me see what else I can get going. And so it worked out.
And so, what do you think from there? So from there, you went into business. So what do you think were the talents or the skills from theater that you took into your first positions?
I started out at Goodwill actually in the retail department, so not much. I was just learning how I had worked my way through college working in the retail environment. So I was very familiar with it. So by the time I graduated from college, I had 10 years of retail management experience, even going back as far as to high school. So nothing at first. And then I think, again, my supervisors at the time were seeing something in me that maybe I didn't see right away. And so somebody was like, she would be a good regional director because she's directing all of these stores and helping other managers and things like that. So I started at the management level and worked my way up. And so the skills that I learned just in that department kind of pushed me into my second role, which was in administration. And I think that's where the theater background kind of kicked in, because I was orchestrating events. I was coordinating with the public and coordinating with our board of directors, and that being not afraid to speak in public and not afraid to be the one to put together the scripts and to go out and make community connections and things like that. And that's all a theater background, right? That's making connections with people and working through those connections. And so it just kind of came natural to me. And then my current role now was actually kind of built for me. We did not have a community engagement department prior to me being there. And so our CEO at the time was like, you can do all the marketing, you can do all the outreach, you can do all the PR, and we'll build a team around you. And so that's what happened.
Right, right. And you're the spokesperson for Goodwill Industries of Fort Worth. And I have to think that came out of your theater training.
Yes. So we always send a lot of our vice presidents to what we call we get them PR trained. And I never had to have any PR training because I know how to talk to a camera or to an audience and not flinch and not necessarily be scared, and to improv and to be able to interview well when it comes to the news and media and things like that. So it came very easy and very naturally to me.
That's fantastic. That is such a declaration of why people should study theater. I want to turn to Skylar now. And so, Skylar, you also have a theater degree, and you've been in commercials, you've been in television shows. I actually want to show. Can we flip up a picture of Skylar being featured in a commercial? And I'd love for you to give us the background on this. That handsome guy.
So this is actually from a music video that I was featured in.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
After college, I went to Pepperdine University out in Malibu, and much like Shay, I did not have a master plan. I sort of found theater, and theater found me, which I think happens for a lot of folks. In high school, tale as old as time, I had a crush on a girl who was going to be in the school musical, and she said, "Hey, this musical is fun. You should audition." I said, "It's a great idea," and had much more of success with theater than I did with dating that girl. So I ended up in college in Southern California, and kind of like Shay mentioned, I did a couple things there, and the theater head of the department came and found me and basically said, "Who the heck are you? Why haven't I seen you? Why aren't you doing this? You're going to be in Los Angeles for 4 years with a room paid for college. Why wouldn't you take a shot at this?" And I am sitting, a decade later as a partner law firm in Dallas, not at all where I saw myself, but that journey absolutely tracks with the skills and experience and development I did personally in theater in that time of my life to where I am now. It really does equip you with such a diverse toolbox You become your own best marketer, but you understand marketing because you've done it from the ground up. You understand teamwork. You understand personalities, how to read people, and really how to network and build in a way that's going to serve you in an office setting, in a sales setting, in a personal setting. To me, theater has been the greatest gift to myself, even though it's difficult and challenging and hard and all those things that anything worthwhile will be. It really does, I think, play into. And I am a litigator. I'm a courtroom lawyer, so there is even more overlap than usual with some jobs. But it really, really has served me incredibly well. And you get to look back on fun times like this music video where I got to do my own stunts and jump off a moving van. And kind of develop a relationship with other folks in the entertainment industry.
So I found this quote that I thought was so interesting. And it's a quote that comes from Konstantin Stanislavski. And it is that students of theater have to notice everything unusual and out of the ordinary in everyday life. That the study of theater builds sensory and muscular memory, and the only thing which can stimulate inspiration in an actor is constant and keen observation every day of one's life. So I'm wondering, I think, Skylar, how does that apply to being a litigator?
Well, it's a wonderful quote, actually. We did an entire Stanislavski course in theater. We also did a movement course. We did everything that you just described. Catherine, you and I have talked about this before. When you are acting, particularly, a lot of folks think, "Oh, I'm putting a mask on." Really, I think it's the opposite. You're tearing down the mask you wear every day and getting back to basics and figuring out how do I incorporate things that I see in my environment into this character to build a character that's not just me, a different me. And so you have to pay attention to everything around you. You're reading people, you're reading their reactions, you're reading yourself. And especially if you do something like improv, which Shay mentioned, I did as well. If you have a job where you interact with other human beings, there is nothing more beneficial than being able to authentically listen to them and authentically respond. People react to that. Whether that's opposing counsel, whether that's a jury or a judge or a client, for me, I have never tried to be more authentic than I am with those people, because in my role, you're representing a client always. And it is my job to go do the best I can for that client. And the best I can do is be really authentic and persuasive in my role as a litigator. And I have found time and time and time and time again, if you can be authentic, people react to it and people connect with it, and it doesn't seem like the produced. You're not being sold something if someone's really talking to you. And learning how to pay attention to your environment and incorporate not only what you see, but how others are feeling and reacting, which you get through theater. It will really do a better job than you can to be persuasive if you can just maintain that level of authenticity.
Mm-hmm. That makes me think so much of the young people we just saw, and how much they put themselves out there in their authentic selves in that video. And it makes me wonder if theater allows people to be brave, if theater gives you permission to be bravely who you are. When you were just speaking of authenticity, and Noel or Shay, can you also weigh in on that?
Sure. I mean, you're absolutely right. You are every night is obviously a new night. You don't get a second chance in theatre, which is fascinating. And I did it very much. I think Skylar and Shay may have done it a little later in life. I done it younger, where you clearly have no fear when you're doing it at that age. And so, but a little bit like I guess what I would say is, just like work, right? I mean, at every night at an interval, when as an audience you're going to grab a drink or a cocktail, we would be kind of reviewed on the first half, and the directors would come back and kind of tell you which routine you nailed and where you were out of key or where you came out of character. And as an 8-year-old, I came out of character a lot, and so And then you'd go back on for the second half, and there'd be pointers for which you needed to make sure that you were buttoned up. And I guess for me, what I've kind of carried from that is, as and when you're having a career chat or a mentorship with an employee, for example, I always kind of keep it in my mind to, if there is performance that's to be addressed, address the performance, but raise the performer. Mm-hmm. And so, because the wider performer is fine, we just got to go in and talk about, again, like they talked to me about many dance routines, but they generally said I was doing okay. So I think that's what I try and adapt, if you like, to corporate world
right.
from things like my halftime pep talks.
So, I do have another question. Shay, I do want to hear about authenticity, but I'm also interested, each one of you in your positions has to be an influencer. You all have to do this. You lead teams, you have juries to convince, you're on the global stage. I'm wondering, do you think that theater informed or shaped the way that you're able to influence because you are able to work in space? In other words, right now we're on video, but normally when you're in person, do you feel that the fact that you know how to use three-dimensional space and you can manipulate three-dimensional space, does that help you to influence people more fully? And Shay, can you start with that and just tell me what you think?
Sure, I think that's absolutely accurate. I mean, prior to this COVID world, when we are interacting with each other in the same space, right? Knowing how to work the room, where to stand, things as simple as that, when to speak up, when to soften your voice, staging and having a stage presence and things of that nature, I think is very beneficial and helpful. And those are all things you learn in theater and in the arts, and how to maneuver yourself, your body, your voice, as you communicate and influence people in your space to move a certain way, to do a certain thing, to motivate, to train. You're using all of those skills. When you're not feeling your best and when you don't, you're not sure if you believe in this project, but you have to convince your team to do it. Oh boy, what a show am I about to put on? I'm about to go in here and move my body, not only just say we're going to do this, it's going to work out great. These are the challenges and the obstacles we're going to face, but this is how we'll maneuver around them. But to say that expressively, that makes a difference. And I think we are probably stronger at that than most for that reason.
That is what I suspect. Skylar, what do you think?
Yeah, and I would say it doesn't only teach you how to use the space, it teaches you how to read the space. If you've done live theater and you've stayed on stage in front of 40 people or 1,000 people, you feel that energy and you understand if the crowd is connecting with you or you're missing your beats, or if you've done improv, you're literally engaging with the crowd and exchanging energy in a way that is very unique. And think about the people that that are not comfortable presenting or have not. There's a lot. So what do I do with my hands? I don't know how to stand. I don't know what to do. When you've been on stage and you don't know your next line in improv, or you're about to do a very difficult emotional scene, you learn to quiet all that stuff and just and perform at your highest and your best, and use the crowd and the audience energy and read it. And I mean, this all tracks back to the authenticity thing I mentioned earlier. You learn how to read the room during a presentation, during a jury presentation, during oral argument. One of the biggest mistakes I see young lawyers make is not paying attention to how the judge is reacting to their argument. They're just going to do their argument because they wrote that and it's got to be right. And they can't react on their feet to realizing, oh, you know what, this isn't working as well as I thought it would. I need to shift gears. And having that level of dynamism and the ability to move on your feet, think on your feet, I mean, it's irreplaceable. No matter what your position is, whether it's strategy like Noel or sales or whether it's the law. It works very well, and you're absolutely right. That space and that energy comes from, I think, theater work.
So, Skylar, you mentioned improv, and I know that you actually did some improv with Country Club Board. Tell us about that, because that just seems so different than being a litigator, which seems so very serious.
Sure. So I in university, I was on our university improv troupe team. If you've ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyway or Second City or The Ground Rules, it's that sort of short form improv. And then I did short form and long form improv with Impro LA performing there. And I'm just, you probably have heard me sort of mention it sometimes, I'm a huge proponent of how valuable improv is, not only for theater practitioners, but for everyone, because it really does teach you to quiet everything, because you don't know what your partner on stage is going to say next. You actually really have to listen to them or the scene won't make sense. And it's so easy in everyday life to just be thinking about what you're going to say next. You're not really engaging with someone. And if you do that in improv, you're dead. So I became a big proponent of how valuable it is, and saw how valuable it was for me in my career. My father had a consulting company. My father ran private country clubs. He worked for CCA and then ran private golf country clubs. And later in life started a consulting company where he went and did consulting days for boards of directors of country clubs. And he actually approached me, having heard me talk about improv so much, and said, I think this is something that they might really appreciate, and it's different and unique, and we might have some interest in it. Would you be willing to come do like an hour-long module for these? And you can imagine what the board of directors of a country club looks like. They're not, the folks who are usually going to jump up on stage and bark like a dog or play improv games. So the first one was a little bit shaky, but after people got through the initial fear, it became the most successful and highly sought after module that he did as a consultant. We had wait lists for it, and because it was so valuable to people that have been successful their entire lives, have done extremely well for themselves, and think they're very comfortable on their feet and all these things. I would get emails and phone calls months later about how much more confident they felt in the boardroom, in their own careers, in their personal lives. One, just they enjoyed it, but two, because it was something so unique and really did feed that level of awareness that you may think you have, but until you've been literally on stage in front of your peers or others, not knowing what's coming next, you haven't been there. So yeah, it was a very unique, very strange, but a very memorable part of working with my dad and doing that kind of work.
That is fantastic. I love that. But to me, that is also theater and improv building courage and building also resilience, that you feel, you're putting yourself out there on this stage, as you said, in front of all these people, and yet you have this certitude that you can manage this. And if you don't, it's going to be okay, right? So
the last thing you said there, that it's going to be okay. And like Noel said, you get one shot, but there's going to be a next night for your play. There'll be a next audition. And especially if you're doing it professionally, you have to be okay with a little bit of failure, because you believe in yourself to get the success later. It's absolutely true. That bravery and that self-confidence is a huge piece of really doing that work.
Right. And I think the other thing that's interesting to me, so Noel, you and Skylar knew each other before tonight. You knew each other in the theater world. So I guess, tell us about that. How did you you're in such different fields, really. And I don't think, how did that come about?
Yeah, we have a mutual friend. And so we actually met here in Dallas. We have a mutual friend. We met up through that friend. All of us are actually participants and would go to the DSM. Then it just so happened that I went through your arts leadership course. Skylar had been through that. Suddenly then that became a triangle. And before you knew it, we were one big happy family. So yeah, that's what happened to us. But we've never performed together. Who knows?
And then you need to include Shay as well.
We do.
Get back into the business, right?
Absolutely.
So we've talked a lot about how important an education in theater is, and not just for a child, but also, at the college level, someone recognizing your talent, all the things that it builds internally for you that hold you, that make you a better person throughout your life. But then flipping on the other side of the sort of big lights, I guess is what they call it, or the bright lights. What is the value then of going to live theater when I could stay home and watch Netflix on my couch? What do you think is, and Shay, let's start with you on this. What is the value of going to live theater?
Well, not only are you patronizing amazing artists, but there's just nothing like live theater. You can't, the feeling is not the same. The emotion is not the same. The smell, I'm totally geeking out right now. I understand, but it's just not the same. So the benefit is to you, the viewer. And then of course you're assisting artists and musicians that, are well deserving of your time and praise, because they're amazing, they're really amazing, but there's just nothing like the experience for me anyway.
Okay, Skylar, that was very well put, and I love all the sensorial sort of part of it. Skylar, what do you think? Why should people be hungry to go back to theater once they've been vaccinated?
Sure. My thing on this is, you often hear like, why don't I just watch a movie? Why don't I just watch TV? Go watch a movie, watch TV. They're different. It's not the same medium. They're not participatory. They're not active. You're an audience member in all three formats, but you aren't an active participant in the event itself. And live theater is an event unto itself. You are feeding the energy that the actors use on stage by being a part of it. If you've ever been to a popular, with Hamilton came through, you walked into that theater and there was actual electricity and magic in the room. I love movies. I love Netflix. I've got Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, all of them. They're great. They don't replace what theater does, nor does theater replace them. And there's space for them to coexist and be co-beneficial. But coming to the theater is its own reward. And it rewards the actors and participants, and it makes you part of the thing. And that participation, that togetherness, especially with as a part as we've been, it is really a wonderful, necessary thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No?
Yeah. It's real time, right? So it's real time, that there is no second chance. For people will tell you that when they get into a show and they'll go multiple nights in a row, every night is a unique experience. There are different things happen at different times. The reactions will be different by the audience, and then the actors may have to kind of pivot based on that. And for me, it can portray acting in its very best, right? Because again, you're not getting the Hollywood or the cut and the retake and everything else. And to I think to Skylar's point, one definite thing I do remember from being in theatre is there was always a very tremendous buzz around full house nights, and so that was always a very well circulated thing. The night before curtain up, tonight's a full house, and you knew it. I mean, you absolutely knew it. And we, for those that may have been, the Sound of Music was the Apollo Victoria, and it was a very kind of small, up high theatre, and just the heat that came off an audience when you had a full night, and that wave upon wave of electricity. And so it's the audience that creates that, right? And so I don't know the last time I got that watching Netflix, I'll tell you. But, yeah.
That is a really, really good point. But I have one more quick question before we turn to that, and that is, I'm really curious to know which play is your favorite from each of you. So what stays in your mind as your the most beloved play, or the most impactful play that you have ever seen in your life. So I am going to start with Noel.
Let me see. I think, for me, and I guess I didn't do the research. I didn't do the research, but for one that knocked me, I guess, recently was Dear Evan Hansen. That was just fantastic. And I mean, the actor was amazing. I saw it at DSM. And that was a very, very, highly emotional show. I just thought that was fantastic. And I mean, again, I think there's been a more recent wave of theatre of less moving sets and pretty much static. Hamilton is for the most part just static, and so there's a lot more pressure. I mean, when I was the Sound of Music thing was just constantly moving. I mean, that thing was just moving everywhere, but there's very little movement now in theatre sets, and that makes it all the more special. But Dear Evan Hansen to me was fantastic.
Okay, and Shay?
It's a tough question.
It is.
But I think I'll just go the straight play route. It would be Sylvia by A.R. Gurney. And I read that in high school and just became obsessed with it. It's a love story. It's almost a story of betrayal and friendship. And no one would know it was about a dog. And so when I got my hands on that script, I was like, this is amazing. Whoever wrote this is amazing. And I've seen it multiple times. I used it as my BFA project, actually.
Interesting.
And anytime I have the opportunity to watch it, I want to, because I'll find something new, a new nugget.
Mm-hmm. And I think that sort of echoing or that ongoing resonance is what makes a work of art great, that it can be returned to with multiple meanings and a sort of an ongoing, just an echo in one's life over and over again at different times in one's life. So, Skylar.
I'm going to cheat and give you two. For a small, intimate show, there's a play called The Boys Next Door by Tom Griffin that I saw in college that just wrecked me, and it has stuck with me forever. There's some monologues from that play that are just fantastic. And then I saw, when I was about 19, I saw Les Mis in London, and I remember just, uncontrollable tears while clapping and applauding and thinking, oh gosh, this is theater, this is the magic, this is it. And it's big and overwhelming, and it's designed to be that way. But it was a fantastic production, and it was all the majesty and grandeur of theater. And yeah, that stuck with me forever. And the Lion King at Pantages was great too.
So what would be the reasons for a patron or a philanthropist to specifically provide for Dallas Summer Musicals? What is it that Dallas Summer Musicals, you all have said that you're involved. What is it that Dallas Summer Musicals provides that is really unique for our community?
Yeah, look, for me, I think a beautiful facility, a wonderful facility, a great kind of, certainly I can say since being with the board and before that being on one of the business development groups, a great almost kind of family atmosphere, led from Ken and Jane down. I'm fortunate to work for an organization that's also a title sponsor of the theatre, and therefore, it clearly appealed to American as being the heartbeat of the community and an area and a facility that you can go and see quality performances at great value, and it's a great evening out. And again, knowing that and then of course the list of stuff that the DSM does for the community. We saw a couple of folks on earlier on there this evening, just a fabric of the community and also the part of Dallas for which it's located.
That's great. That's great. I mean, it's such. Shay, can you add?
Yes, just I don't know a Dallas, and I'm a Fort Worth girl, but I don't know a Dallas without DSM. It just that's what we went to Dallas to do, because if you know Fort Worth and Dallas, we don't go over that way very much, but we would definitely go to see a show and participate in anything that they had going on. I think that when you have a theater and a company that's that ingrained in the fabric of the city, it's absolutely important to support that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I think one of the I moved to Dallas after law school, and one of the knocks on Dallas you always hear is, "Oh, Dallas doesn't have culture; it just buys it and imports it." It's just and you just heard two people talk about the musical series that is part of the fabric of Dallas, and not knowing Dallas. This is one of the iconic Dallas institutions that says, "No, we do things here, we make things here, and we put on worthwhile art and theater, and our museums are just as good as anybody's, and our musicals are just as good as anybody's." And being a part of Dallas, sort of planting its feet and saying, "No, we're one of the great cities of the world, and we have some of the great art, and we make it here, and we have for a long time." To me, that speaks a lot. It's why I want to be involved with that DSM.
Right, right. That's so well said. And I love the word that you used, iconic, because I think the Dallas Summer Musicals are iconic in Dallas. And, we do know that a lot of companies are moving here, relocating here, and they are, they have a younger workforce that's looking for quality of life. And they're looking for organizations like Dallas Summer Musicals to ensure that there is a rich cultural life here. A lot of these young people could move anywhere. They can work also from remote. And so it's such an important sort of jewel in the crown of Dallas to have. So another question is, what kind of advice would you give to a young student, either who's thinking about studying theater or who is already studying theater but might not know, just like we were talking about, what their future holds? And so I'm just going to go around. And Noel, what kind of advice would you give one of the young people who we just saw, or someone thinking that maybe they'll take some theater classes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was clearly, you could clearly tell from the two individuals earlier, it was their passion. And it's in their blood, and I would encourage them to follow that passion. It gives you so many kind of life lessons. And I think for me, again, it's you're very much a team when you're up on that stage, and therefore acting as a team and supporting your cast members is key, and that's on and off the stage. You're our community, and that translates again very easy if you were to come out of theatre. And so risk taking, right? I mean, you're going to take risks, whether that's on a part or on a performance, and so again, that will stand very well to you, I think, going forward. And certainly, confidence. I mean, it will instill confidence in you. Confidence again to know that you can, if you fall down, you'll get back up again, or in the sense of not getting apart, right? And it'll build confidence for you. And so, for me, I don't think there is a negative. If it's in your heart, you have, and even if you don't have an initial passion for it, but you have an inkling for it, I would just say pursue it, follow it out, play it out, and see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. It's good advice. And Shay, what would you say?
Just to go for it. There's no safer place to be yourself, I have found, and whether that's on the stage or off the stage, because as a quirky teen, that was my safe place. So, by the time I got to Texas Wesleyan as a freshman in theater, nobody cared that I wore all one color at one time, because there was somebody else there that was probably doing something just as strange. And there's a sense of community and belonging that I don't think you get anywhere else. So whether that's a whole major or a couple of classes, it's a safe place.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, Skylar, I want you to add to that. And I'm also wondering if you find that same sense of community when you serve on the board of an organization that you're passionate of, sort of finding your people.
Sure. With regard to the first point, advice, I think people sometimes worry, if I study theater, am I going to close doors for myself? Am I going to limit myself? Theater doesn't close doors, your choices do. So you can choose to keep those doors open, or you can choose to close them down. But just like playing a sport in high school or anything else, it does teach you that teamwork, confidence, other things, and that's valuable no matter what you do, if you stick with it or not. And then as far as the community aspect that Shay touched on, absolutely. Catherine, you know this very well with me. I recently joined the board of a smaller theater here in town. Mm-hmm. And it came because I had done leadership arts with you guys and had instantly reconnected with that sense of community and family. Family is used a lot in theater. If you're putting on a show or putting up a production, it was an instant reminder of all the reasons I fell in love with theater and found myself in it. And being back around those creative, heartfelt people really fed that energy in me. And look, we're all busy and we all have jobs that require a bunch of our time. But suddenly you find the energy to go reconnect with things because that energy feeds you from being around that creative family. It's irreplaceable. It's magic, the word we toss around a lot, but it really is. And I think service, especially in the arts community, can help feed that same love you may have found at a different time in your life.
Very, very well said. So I am going to end with that. And I loved irreplaceable, magic, finding your people, feeling that confidence. I mean, you gave there's every reason to be involved with theater and no reason to not be involved with theater. And so you all have been just amazing. And I would love to take you for a drink when we get back in person. So you've all been just incredible. And Ken, thank you for giving us the privilege of just being together with you. So I'm going to pass this back to you. And again, thank you.
Well, thank you, Catherine, and thank you, panelists. I got to say, I am just full of so much appreciation for each of you, and as well as for the DSM board and the DSM staff and all these people that work together to create the things that you're talking about. You just made my year with this conversation tonight. So thank you so much for all of that. I just wanted to mention, Shay, that Sylvia happens to be one of my favorite plays too. So super cool that you mentioned that. It's a terrific play. And I love that you shared the phrase, theater gives you a sense of belonging and community. That's what we strive for. So I appreciate that you have that feeling. Skylar, you mentioned the phrase, togetherness is a wonderful and necessary thing. The word necessary, often used for something else, but not theater, right? Absolutely necessary. And so I appreciate your thoughts on that. And to our wonderful board member, Noel, your phrase, the heartbeat of the community, just means so much to us, from our education work to our work on stage. So thank you for being with us and being part of us and for participating tonight. So in any case, we look forward to continuing to spread the spirit of Broadway through DFW with all of you. I wish everyone a wonderful evening and, coming up, a happy holiday. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you all.